Welcome back to the channel. If you love unbelievable talent, emotional true stories, and moments that take your breath away, then you are in the perfect place. Make sure to watch this entire video because today we are talking about one of the most unforgettable performances ever to walk on the stage of America's Got Talent. This is the story of a quiet, humble Filipino boy who stepped onto the stage with nothing but a dream, a passion buried deep inside him, and a voice that would soon shock Simon Cowell and leave millions speechless. Let's dive into the full emotional journey, because this is not just a performance, it is a story that touches the heart, inspires the world, and shows how extraordinary talent can come from the most unexpected places. The story begins on a bright afternoon in Pasadena, where hundreds of contestants waited nervously backstage, each with their own hope of hearing the golden words, "You are going to the live shows." Among them stood a young Filipino boy named Lucas. He was quiet, almost invisible in the buzzing crowd, tightly gripping the microphone he had been practicing with for months. His hands were shaking, his mind replaying every sacrifice his family made, every moment of doubt, and every night he stayed awake whisper singing so he wouldn't wake anyone. Today was the day everything could change. Today was the day he would step in front of the judges he had only seen on TV while sitting in a small living room back home. His mother stood beside him, whispering encouragement in their native language. She reminded him that no matter what happens, they were already proud of him. Lucas nodded, but deep down he wondered if he truly belonged on this giant international stage. He wasn't dressed in expensive clothes. He didn't have a flashy story. He didn't even know if Simon Cowell, the toughest judge of all, would take him seriously. All he had was a dream, his voice, and a heart beating faster than it ever had before. When his turn came, the stage manager called his name. Lucas walked slowly onto the stage, staring into the massive crowd and the bright lights that seemed almost blinding. The judges looked at him, waiting for him to speak. Simon leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, scanning the boy with curious eyes. Heidi smiled softly, Sophia leaned forward, and Howie gave a friendly wave. The audience was buzzing, wondering what this shy young boy could possibly do. Simon spoke first, asking him where he was from, how old he was, and what brought him here today. Lucas answered politely, his voice trembling. He said he came from the Philippines, he was 14, and he had always dreamed of singing on this stage. Simon asked what song he would be performing, and when Lucas revealed the song, there was an audible reaction from the judges. It was a big song, a song most adult professionals struggled with. Simon raised an eyebrow and warned him that choosing such a difficult song was a risky decision. Lucas swallowed hard, stared at the microphone, and whispered that he wanted to challenge himself. The music started. For a moment, nothing happened. Lucas stood still, frozen, unsure if he could actually do this. The first note of the instrumental echoed across the theater. The crowd grew silent. Then, in the softest, most delicate voice, he began. The entire atmosphere of the room shifted. His timid demeanor disappeared as soon as he hit the first high note. His voice was crystal clear, powerful, emotional, and unbelievably controlled for someone his age. The audience leaned forward. The judges' expressions changed instantly. As Lucas continued, something magical happened. People in the audience held their breath. Some covered their mouths in shock. His voice soared through every note as if the song was written for him. When he reached the first big high note, the crowd erupted, breaking the silence that had taken over the room. Simon's eyes widened. Heidi gasped. Sophia placed a hand on her chest. Howie turned toward the audience and shook his head in disbelief. But Lucas didn't lose focus. He wasn't singing for applause. He wasn't singing for fame. In his mind, he saw the faces of the people back home who believed in him. He saw his mother crying in the kitchen when he told her he wanted to audition. He remembered singing to himself under the stars when the electricity would go out in their neighborhood. This performance was everything he carried inside him. Every struggle, every dream, every moment of hope. When he reached the most difficult part of the song, his voice rose higher than anyone expected, filled with emotion so raw that even Simon Cowell leaned forward, speechless. The crowd roared again, this time longer, louder, and more passionate. But Lucas wasn't done yet. He took a breath, closed his eyes, and delivered the final note with such strength that the entire auditorium exploded into applause. People stood up. Judges stood up. Even those who doubted him were now cheering at the top of their lungs. And then came the silence. The music stopped. Lucas stood on stage, his chest rising and falling, tears forming in his eyes. He couldn't believe what he had just done. The thunderous applause still echoed, but he couldn't hear anything. It was like the world stopped for a moment. Finally, the judges took their seats, and Simon looked at him with an expression no one expected. It wasn't criticism. It wasn't skepticism. It was something else. Something rare. Admiration. Simon leaned closer and began speaking slowly. He told Lucas that he walked onto the stage like a shy boy, but the moment he began to sing, he transformed into someone completely different. He said that Lucas had just delivered one of the best vocals he had ever heard from someone his age. He said that the number of auditions he had seen in his life was enormous, but very few had moved him the way this performance did. Heidi followed, saying that Lucas had a gift that needed to be shared with the world. She explained that very few performances made her emotional, but this one did. Sophia added that his voice was angelic, powerful, and unforgettable, calling him a true star in the making. Howie said that Lucas had something he couldn't explain, something pure and magical. But then Simon stood up. The audience went silent. The other judges looked at him, confused. Lucas stared, confused as well. Simon walked toward the center of the judges' panel and placed his hand on the golden buzzer. The crowd knew what was coming. The room shook as people screamed in excitement. Lucas covered his mouth, shaking uncontrollably. His mother backstage began crying, overwhelmed with emotion. Simon pressed the golden buzzer, and in that instant, golden confetti rained down from the ceiling. The stage transformed into a glittering world of celebration. Lucas collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the joy and disbelief. His mother ran onto the stage, hugging him tightly as confetti covered their hair and clothes. The judges stood and clapped as Simon walked onto the stage and gave Lucas a hug, telling him that he truly deserved it. It was a moment that would live forever in the history of the show. A moment that proved dreams can come true in ways you never expect. In the days that followed, millions watched his audition online. The comments were filled with praise, love, and support from people across the world. Filipinos everywhere celebrated him, proudly calling him a shining representation of their talent and culture. People said they watched the video again and again because his voice touched something deep inside them. Some said his performance helped them through difficult times. Others said he inspired the children to chase their own dreams. But Lucas didn't let fame change him. He remained humble, grateful, and dedicated. He continued practicing daily, knowing that the live shows were coming and the pressure would be even greater. Reporters interviewed him, asking how he felt about getting the golden buzzer from Simon. He smiled shyly and said he still couldn't believe it. He said he only wanted to make his mother proud. He said he hoped his story would inspire kids around the world to believe in themselves, even when they feel invisible. Backstage at the live shows, he felt the same nervousness he did during the audition, but this time there was something different. He knew he belonged here. He knew he had earned this moment. When he walked onto the stage again, the audience recognized him and cheered loudly. The judges smiled as he prepared for another performance. When the music started, he closed his eyes and let the emotion take over. His voice was even better than before. He sang with confidence, power, and precision, showing the world that he was more than just a viral moment. He was a real artist with extraordinary talent. The audience gave him a standing ovation once again. And even though Simon didn't have another golden buzzer to give, his smile said everything. As the competition continued, Lucas remained one of the most talked about contestants. Fans around the world supported him, praising his performances, sharing his clips, and telling his story again and again. Even people who had never watched the show before tuned in because they wanted to witness the magic everyone was talking about. His journey became more than a talent show performance. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that greatness can rise from the most unexpected corners of the world. And when the finals arrived, the entire world watched. Lucas stepped onto the stage in front of millions of viewers, carrying every dream, every moment, and every hope he had ever held. His final performance was breathtaking. He sang with everything he had inside him, pouring his entire soul into each note. It was powerful, emotional, and unforgettable. The judges stood again. The audience roared. People at home cried. Even Simon looked emotional, something rarely seen on television. When the voting lines closed, fans waited with anticipation. And while he didn't win first place, his name became one of the most memorable of the season. He won something far greater than a trophy. He won the hearts of millions. His journey didn't end with the show. It was only the beginning. After the competition, music producers contacted him. Invitations flooded in from shows, events, and interviews across the world. He performed in concerts, recorded songs, and continued sharing his gift. Everywhere he went, he carried the same genuine humility that won the hearts of the judges from the beginning. His mother traveled with him, supporting him every step of the way, reminding him where he came from and how far he had risen. Years later, when people look back at the journey of extraordinary talents on America's Got Talent, Lucas's name always appears in the conversation. His audition remains one of the most watched in the show's history. His voice continues inspiring countless young singers, especially those who come from small towns or humble backgrounds. Teachers use his performance as an example of determination. Musicians praise his control and emotional depth. Fans say his videos still give them goosebumps every time they watch. And at the center of all this admiration remains a young Filipino boy who once stood backstage, trembling, unsure if he belonged on that giant stage. A boy who stepped forward despite his fear. A boy who sang not because he wanted fame, but because he believed in his dream. A boy who reminded the world that extraordinary talent can come from anywhere. His story teaches us that dreams are not limited by geography, money, or circumstances. They grow from courage, passion, and the willingness to take a risk even when the world seems too big. He showed how one moment, one performance, and one voice can move millions. He turned doubt into victory, fear into strength, and a shy whisper into a world-changing sound. So whenever you feel small, uncertain, or invisible, remember Lucas. Remember the moment he stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage. Remember how Simon Cowell looked shocked. Remember how the world rose to its feet. And remember that inside every one of us, there is talent waiting to be discovered, potential waiting to be unleashed, and a dream waiting to shine. Thank you for watching this emotional journey. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to stay connected because more unbelievable true talent stories are coming soon. And always remember, talent has no boundaries, no limits, and no age. Believe in your dreams, follow your passion, and one day, the world might also rise to its feet for you.